Hello there. My name's Corey. A lot of you may know me as 8-Track or the 8th Mile. Now, for a while now, I've wanted to sit down and kind of tell you guys about me. You only ever really see me through a webcam lens or over Twitch. A lot of you guys don't really know who I am as a person, and I'd like to share my past experiences with you guys. And that's kind of what this whole video is about. So over the next couple days, I'm going to be sitting down in this chair, this microphone, and this camera, and recording just me talking with some pictures and whatever else I can think of to throw in there. As you know, I'm a streamer, I'm a graphic designer, but I'm also a person. I've got a story just like everybody else. I've got a history. I've got, the way I was raised, who I was raised around, events that lead up to certain things you do in your life. And as much as I love streaming and I love creating content, I love making things, a lot of the times you can get really burnt out on it. You can ask any streamer, they're going to tell you the same thing. It happens. And recently, well, not really recently, I should say over the past couple of years, I've been feeling kind of down about it. And there's no exact reason for it. I can tell you one thing, it's definitely a mental thing. I don't know what's going on in my head, and a lot of the times I can't control it. But it's not your fault. It's not something you can fix. It's not something that I can fix. It's just something that I have to deal with. It's this thing called depression that a lot of people have, right? And there's no like fix for it. There's no solution. There's no medicine that's actually going to help with it. It's something that you have to just push through and try to be better at. And a lot of the time you can't. Like it drags you down. It drags you down a lot. And there's no magic pill or magic thing you can say to someone. You can't tell someone to just be happier. It's not going to fix anything, because that's just how the world works. That's just how our minds work. A lot of content creators these days are struggling, myself included. It's getting harder and harder to be famous or successful on Twitch or on YouTube or on any of these streaming platforms. And a lot of people can't understand why that's stressful. And to me, I didn't get it until, like I said, about a year and a half ago. It starts to take a toll on you, because you're this person on a camera, right here. You're a person on this camera. And it's hard to be yourself because nobody wants to see you. They want to see the best you. And it's hard to be the best you for hours and hours on end in front of a camera. It really is. It's one of the most difficult things you can do. And you could talk shit all you want to, say, oh, well, you get all the attention and all this. Exactly. You have all these eyes on you all the time. And it's hard. And that's part of being a streamer, part of being a content creator of any sort. It is hard. You don't understand it till you understand it. And it sucks. Because someone on the outside can't come up to me and say, I know what you feel, unless they've been through it. So I'm going to be giving you guys a summarization of my life to give you a little bit more of an insight to who I am as a person. There's a lot of writing that's gone into this. A lot of time and effort is going to be going into the editing. I'm going to start from the beginning. There's a lot of ways to tell a story. You can start in the middle, the end, even after the end. But I'm starting this from the start, where most stories do. I was born on August 12th, 1997. I was a little baby with red hair. When I was born, I was known as the Robert Redford baby. I've always had red hair. If it's not evident, usually under a beanie or a hat of some kind, or mixed in with a sun-bleached blonde mop on top of my head. My mother, Bethany, and my father, Gary, didn't get along too well. My mother couldn't take the stress of motherhood, and my father was overwhelmed with taking care of my older brother, Jacob Trevor, JT for short. He was autistic and required a lot of attention. So I came into a world that wasn't prepared for me. My mother and father split when I was about a year and a half old. At around 2 years, my mother decided she'd had enough of my father and all the issues between them. She stopped showing up to the scheduled visitation appointments and stopped paying child support. I don't know if she couldn't afford it or didn't want to pay my father. But either way, she wasn't there for me when I was a child. I remember one day I was in daycare, and my dad came and picked me up from daycare. I was 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old. Picked me up from daycare, and I remember going to the courthouse to change my name because my mother had gone behind my father and changed my name to her last name, which was, it's crazy if you think about it. Like, who does that, right? Yeah. I didn't know what my mother looked like until I was 14 years old, 14 to 16 years old, when Facebook was about. My dad showed me the first picture of her at around that time. He found her on Facebook and showed me a profile picture, which is a crazy thought, you know. She's nothing like what I thought she'd look like, but I could still see like the resemblance between me and her, and it was weird to see a stranger, someone that, you know, you could have pulled off the street and said, "This is your mom," and I wouldn't have believed you, because you don't know, right? You don't know, and I didn't know, and it was just a crazy thing to see my mother for the first time. Shortly after that, I found out that I had 2 brothers that I'd never met. I didn't know they existed. All I got were their first names and pictures of them that were about 4 years old. They're about 4 years old pictures. They're nothing recent. But I ended up reverse image searching the older one. His name's Zach, and I found him on Facebook. The reason I found him is because he's on the New Hampshire Olympic archery team, which I was like, whoa, my brother's cool. Like, it's my little brother, right? I messaged him on Facebook, and actually, I have the messages. So I sent him a friend request, and he messaged me with, "Hey, man." I said, "Yo, bro." He said, "Do I know you from somewhere?" I said, "No, you don't. At least I don't think you do. Can you keep a secret, though? For real, you can't tell anyone else. It's got to stay between you and I." And the reason I said that is because I was unsure if legally I was allowed to talk to him. My mother had him adopted out, and my other brother, which is 2 more children that she'd abandoned and or wasn't ready for. And so I said, "Can you keep a secret? For real, though, you can't tell anyone else. It's got to stay between you and I." He said, "Sure." I said, "I'm your brother." And he says, "Is this a joke?" And I said, "I wish." And he said, "I'm confused." And he said, like my birth brother? And I said, "Yes. How do you know?" And I said, "Our mom sent my dad a picture of you. I reverse image searched it, and I found your name." And he said, "Oh." And then I found you on Facebook. And he said, "Oh." I said, "Yeah, I found out about you a year ago." And he said, "Can you legally contact me?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "I won't tell anyone." And I said, "That's why I said keep it between us." And I said, "I'm your older brother. I figured you should know you're not alone. If you ever need someone to talk to, I've been through everything you can imagine." He said, "Do you have Snapchat?" Added him on Snapchat. And I've been talking to him ever since. You know, he has all kinds of questions about our mother that I can't answer because I don't know. I don't know her. Obviously, he was asking if my dad was his dad, and I said no. It's pretty tough. Like, honestly, I was sitting there over my phone crying, talking to this stranger. Again, talk about strangers. My mother's a stranger, and my brother's a stranger. And then I reached out and I talked to him. I really wish that I could be there for him, obviously, but I wish I could have been there for him his whole life. But he's had all these questions that I can't answer, and it put a lot of stress on me. More stress than I should have put on myself, honestly. Anyways, we're going to go on and to the next part of the story. So, a few of my father's girlfriends and a few of my own birthdays later, my dad met this woman named Denise. They got along pretty well, I guess. Fell in love really fast, and soon they got married. She was my dad's second wife, his first wife being my older brother JT that I talked about earlier. His mother was his first wife. He was not married to my mom. And he married Denise, and Denise had a daughter. Her name was Shelby. She was my stepsister. Her and I always got along pretty well, normal brother sister kind of stuff. We ended up selling this beautiful home that we had in the middle of New Hampshire, in the middle of the woods that I'd lived in for the majority of my childhood. We sold that and moved in with her because my dad thought that was a good decision. And anyways, so we moved into this house with them, and they had it was Shelby, Denise, and then they had a dog. Dog name was Molly. She was a fat wiener dog, like 4 times the size of a regular wiener dog. like this big around, I swear. Like, she's massive. It was like watching like a bratwurst with toothpicks for legs walking around the house. It was hilarious. She had like big bulging eyes and a big snout. She was black in color with, you know, some brown and white highlights. Over time, she slowly just gained more and more weight, and she got fatter and fatter because we never exercised her. Brought her for walks to go to the bathroom, and that was about it. So I remember this one time, Shelby and I were playing with Molly. Oh my god, this playing, man. We were playing with her, and we were wiggling her legs like she was running, and we were saying that she was getting exercise, and we were like 6 years old. We had no idea what was going on. But so we're sitting there wiggling her legs and saying like, oh, she's losing weight. Just one of those things that you remember from being a kid. So anyways, things move forward. We ended up moving out of her house, and they get another house in a different part of New Hampshire that's closer to my dad's family but farther away from hers. And another plane. So we moved into this house, and it had a massive garage, right? Huge garage. And my dad used to do metalworking out of it. He had a business called North American Metal Masters. You can look it up if you want to. He made a staircase for Shaun White. Him and a couple other guys constructed Mototown, USA, which is the biggest indoor motocross stadium in the world at the time. I don't know if anything's beat it by now. But so he was doing all this wonderful stuff, and it was amazing to see my father, you know, grow as a businessman and do good for himself and do good for his business and make a little bit more money than we always had, because I was always poor. But he was away from home like all the time for like weeks on end. He'd go down to Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut, and be working on this on the stadium, and he'd just leave us at home, and it would just be Denise. And of course, she was stressed out. She had 4 kids to be watching. Oh, at this time, by the way, my little brother, my father and Denise had a kid. It's my little brother named Logan. And slowly, I think over time, the stress got to her of my dad being away. And she slowly started to get like more and more aggressive towards me and my older brother. I think it's just because we weren't her kids, and somehow in her head it just, I don't know, she just didn't love us the way she loved Shelby and Logan. And my older brother, being autistic, he's a very emotional person. It's hard for him to show you that he loves you because he doesn't understand how that works. Let's talk a little bit about my older brother before we keep going down that road. My older brother, JT, he is now properly diagnosed. At the time, we thought he was just autistic. He has schizophrenia, he's bipolar, and on top of that, he does have autism. And I grew up... A lot of the times, he would have issues, and he would come to me and ask me for help, which I was 7 years younger than he was, and I didn't know what to say. So he's going through all this trouble in high school. He's getting bullied because he's not the same as everybody, and of course he doesn't want to tell my dad because it's just how it is, right? Your brother's the person that you talk to. And when I say I was my little brother's older brother, it's because I would help him through school, because obviously he wasn't in like he wasn't in AP chemistry. He was in very basic classes, just skating his way through middle school, and I was just now learning how to properly write essays and all this other stuff that I was doing in elementary school, 5-paragraph essay kind of thing. And he would come to me and he would ask me, like, what do these words mean? How do I spell this? And all this stuff. And I would try as much as a little kid can to help him do this stuff. And I mean, I tried to help him. He's, but this, like I said, there's so much a little kid can do. And me and him had a really strong bond. We shared a bedroom growing up. Lived in the basement of our house. It was a huge room, and it had 2 pillars in the middle of it that were supports for the floor above us. And above us was my sister's bedroom, because she had her own bedroom, my parents' bedroom, and then my little brother, who was, at the time, he was a couple months old to a year old, above us there. And, we would always stay up late talking and all this other stuff. And this house is actually the first house that I got introduced to video games to. First ever console I had was a Nintendo 64. I had 3 games. I had Gex the Gecko, I think it was. Gex N64, or Gex 64. It's the little gecko dude that runs around as like a secret agent guy. We had Jedi Pod Racing, which of course is a classic. And then we had, what was the other one? Paperboy? Yeah, I think it was Paperboy, where you throw the newspapers and you're getting chased with a dog, I think. And that was my first ever console. And we used to play it all the time together. It was a bonding, just me and my brother hanging out playing games together. And we didn't have a memory card for it, so we used to sit there and play the same levels over and over again every time we turned on the console, because you turned it off, you lost all your progress because you didn't have a memory card to save anything to. And my dad was always away, so we never went to GameStop. We had these 3 games for like 2 years. So we're sitting there playing these games over and over again, same levels all the time. And no matter how many times I played that level with the dragon, the Chinese dragon, I don't know if that's like racist or not, but the Chinese dragon that comes through, you know what I mean? If you play the game, you know what I'm talking about. No matter how many times we would sit there and play, we could never beat that level. And I think one time we finally beat it, and then it was like time for dinner, so we had to turn it off, and it was like the worst thing in the world. Like, we finally got this, finally did this thing we wanted to do for so long, and it was, God, all because we didn't have a stupid memory card. Eventually, we ended up getting a Xbox 360, or not, sorry, an Xbox 360. I didn't get one of those till I was 16. A original Xbox. I still have it, actually. I think it's in the other room. I think. Not 100% sure on that one. But the original big brick Xbox. And we had one game for it, and that was Need for Speed Underground. I think it was Underground. I'm not really sure. Might have, yeah, I think it was Underground. Need for Speed Underground. I have no idea. I'm not very good with Need for Speed games. This is like fucking 13 years ago. Excuse me. So we would do the whole racing thing when they have one controller. And we play that all the time and go back and forth and do like drag races and whatever. And that was like my first real experience with video games in my own home. Other than that, I had my best friend Tyler at the time, who he was new to school, which I met him through school. He lived like kind of up the road. It was kind of like up around the bend, probably about like 2 miles from where my house was. Like close enough to be close, but not close enough to walk there because I was a little kid, and you can't walk too far when you're 6 or 7 years old, 8 years old. And so Tyler was my best friend growing up in my childhood years. He was super, super new to the school. His family had moved around a lot because of his dad's job. He came to our school, and immediately him and I clicked like that. Best friends on the spot, right? Every day after school, we'd want to go hang out and everything. And he was he was that rich friend that you have, as a kid. Like, you're like, oh, I want to go hang out with this guy. He's got all the cool stuff. And he had an Xbox. He had Halo. He had Half-Life 2. He had everything I wanted for like video games and everything, but I never got until I was older. And that was my first time ever playing Half-Life as well. Was over on Tyler's Xbox. And I don't know. Me and him were just like best buds. I was the kid in school that nobody liked. Still me. I was a little weirdo. Talked too much. Didn't know how to shut up. I was always getting made fun of and bullied and stuff because that's just how I grew up, even through high school. And he was just the new kid. Nobody knew him, and he was a weirdo too. And I don't know. We just hit it off, right? Best friends. And I used to go over to his house all the time. They moved across town once. They had this like really, really nice house, and they moved into this really, really, really nice house. And I remember, so like him and I used to call each other all the time, right, on the home phone, landline. Let's get it. And one day I called him and he didn't answer. And then the next day I called him over and over again, and it was like he wasn't at school for about like a week and a half. He wouldn't answer the phone, and like one day, I just gave up calling him. One day I decided, I'm gonna call him and see if he'll answer. And I called him, and his mom answered. Her name was Hope. And hello, I was like, hey, this Corey, is Tyler there? She's like, yeah, 1 second. She went and she got him, and he goes, hello. I was like, hey man, where you been at school? Aren't you all this stuff? And he's like, I don't know, man. I don't really want to talk about it. And hung up on the phone and everything. And then I think it was like a week and a half later, his mom called my dad and told us his dad had passed away from a heart attack. And it was like really, really shitty news for me and obviously for him and his family. It was devastating, but it was like his dad was like the nicest person ever. He was the guy that was always inviting me over. Hey, you want to go here with us? You want to go do this with us? Because he knew that, like, I grew up without money and they had money, and that was like, I don't know, I guess he just liked me. Like he was such a nice dude, really, really nice dude. And it sucked as a kid to lose him. I cried, and it wasn't even my dad. And, yeah, so that's one of those shitty childhood stories. And it's funny because I think the last time I talked to Todd was like 6 years ago, and I was looking through my phone today, and I still have his, while I was writing this whole generic output of whatever I'm going to make this into, and I realized I still have Tyler's number, and I have not texted him, but I'm thinking about doing it just to see if it's still his actual number, because I don't know. I remember his last name and everything. I had his phone number memorized. I think I still do. If I tried hard enough, I could probably write down his old home phone number if I really wanted to. So anyways, yeah, that was Tyler. That was my best childhood friend growing up, before I moved to Florida. After all that happened, Tyler and I we're still buddies. We didn't hang out as much. He was more of a reclusive person. He didn't like interaction as much as he used to, which is understandable. You lose a loved one, and that happens. So anyways, back to my dad. He was a metal worker growing up, kind of like a blacksmith, but he would make art instead of, like art and like staircases and things like that, instead of like swords. And they make like signs, railings, buildings, ramps, frames, whatever, all that stuff. He made custom candle holders. He made, coat racks. He made anything you could think of that's made out of metal. He could make it with his hands. It was crazy. And he's a wonderful, wonderful person. I love my father. So anyways, he like I said before, he had started this new business, North American Metal Masters, and he was away for so long and all the time, and coming and going, and like I said, a lot of that put stress on my stepmom, and I think she took it out on me and my older brother, like I said, just because like we weren't her kids, right? So like you're not gonna feel that guilty about it or whatever. And she wasn't exactly the best person. And she never has been, even throughout these years. Still knowing her to this day, she's not a good person. And it just sucks that kids have to go through what they go through when they're younger, and an innocent child, like putting blame on them for things they don't do. Me personally as a child, she's very, very mentally abusive, right? I'd say verbally, but not so much verbally, because she'd be careful what she say. She wouldn't physically hurt us. I mean, she has before. I've been sprayed directly in the eye with a hose before by her. I've been prodded with a fork. I've been shoved. I've been thrown into walls. I've had doors closed on me, shoes thrown at me, all that stuff. But that's nothing too harsh, right? And for some cases are very extreme. And she was the kind of person that wouldn't tell you to fuck off. She would, like, here's a good example, right? Instead of beating us, she would work us. So like, as a child, I would do like physical labor. Like she would this isn't like punishment. This is just because she can. It's because she doesn't want to do something, she'll make us do it. So she would make me garden. I do mulching. I would clean screens when we lived in Florida, clean the lanai screens, painting, taking out the trash. I would sit outside and pull weeds for hours for no reason on a Friday night or on a Saturday. And this is from like 8 in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. As a child, you need to be able to have a social aspect in your life. And you're making this kid stay at home for an entire summer, right? Doing physical labor for you while you sit back and watch. And when dad comes home and he sees all this work that gets done, she's the one that did all of it. Not me. Not my older brother that doesn't know any better because he's not there mentally. You're taking advantage of a child and making them do this shit for you, and then like there's no reward for it. Like it was every single day that she could get her hands on us to do shit for her, we would. Clean the garage out. The garage is already clean. Clean it again. Reorganize it this way. Do it this way. Okay, go out and mulch. We just mulched yesterday. Okay, we'll put some more mulch on it because I want it this way. I don't like that. Take it out. Do this way. Rake the yard. Go mow the yard. Oh, I don't like the way you did that. We're going to go seed the yard. I swear, I fucking resodded that yard like 4 fucking times in a year, dude. Like pulling up sod and then resodding it and then putting the seeds over it and all that shit. That's why I'm good at yard work, by the way. So I was raised by my dad's words of the truth will set you free, right? So he would always say, like, you know, just tell the truth. If I ever did anything bad, it was always just tell the truth. Me and my father were very, very truthful with each other. If I ever did anything stupid, I would tell him. If he asked me directly, did you do this? Yes, I did it. And there were many, many times where he would come home from work and I'd come home from school and she would tell him that I did something. And he would say, did you do that? And I'd say no. And he'd go, stop lying. He's like, she said you did, right? And I was like, I didn't do it. I wouldn't lie to you. You know, you, like, I've known you my entire life. You've known this woman for, 3-4 years now. It's like I'm your son, right? But of course, fathers think, oh, well, you just lied so he doesn't get in trouble. So I got the shit beat out of me for shit that I didn't even do. Fucking, it was, my little Logan would jump on the trampoline and get like those little like burn marks on him, right? When you like slide on the trampoline, and she would come home and see them and tell my dad that I beat my brother and tell my brother that I beat him and brainwash my brother into thinking that I beat him. Like it's stupid. Their whole relationship was the worst part of my life. And it's not only because the way she acted, but the way that I had to deal with it. Like there's no way to get out of that. You've got this woman who's telling you that she's your mother, but in the back of my head, I'm sitting here thinking like, but I don't know my mom. Like, and you're telling me you want to be my mom, but like you don't want to. Like, I don't know how am I supposed to get treated by a mom? I don't know. I've never had a proper mother figure, and she would like make us call her mom. It wasn't Denise. It was never Denise. It was always mom, and she wasn't my mom. And after we moved to Florida, things just got so much worse. My dad was working 5 to 9, finally at a regular job, and it was just her at home. And of course, she would just find ways to just dig into us, right? Just evil woman. And like my brother is now in high school. I'm in middle school. He's getting bullied. He finally picks up a sport and gets into lacrosse, right? And I'm still trying to figure out what the fuck I'm doing in this world, because I'm so mentally messed up at this point. Like, from just like, if you get told something enough times in your life, eventually you're gonna believe it. And if you get told you're nothing and that you're worthless and that you're shit pretty much over and over every single day, eventually you're gonna think that. So that's the way that. And a lot of the times when people ask me like why I'm so down on myself is because I was literally raised being told I was a piece of shit. And it's hard to come back from that. You can't form your own opinions when that's all you get told, right? So that's a lot of the reason why, I think the way I think, and it sucks. But I can't change it, and I can only try and get better. So anyways, going into middle school, my older brother, he got into lacrosse. He was really good at lacrosse. He was physically, he was a beast. Like, he was a beast. Just mentally, he wasn't where he needed to be. And it's difficult for someone to be in high school and have challenges like that and, have no one to relate to. But he had me. He would talk to me, and I would try and relate with him and everything. And graduation day for my brother came about from high school. And I remember my dad's always late to everything. Always. He's always late, perpetually late. He's been better about it lately, though. He is trying to get better about it. Most of the time, he's always either right on time or 15 minutes late. There's no like in between or like 15 minutes. No, it's always late. And I'm that kind of person where I get really like worried, like really, really worried if I'm going to be late for something, and I kind of freak out and panic. And I think it's just because of the way that my dad was always late for everything, late for my cello concerts in high school, late for everything. So we show up to my brother's graduation from high school late, and the doors are closed, and there's this big like dude standing outside in a suit. And we walk up to the door and we're like, hey, we need to get in and everything. And my dad's like sitting there. He's in tears because this dude's like, no, we can't let anybody else in. And he goes, my fucking son's in there. He's autistic. He's fucking graduating fucking high school. I never thought I'd see this fucking... And this dude's like, okay. And he opens up the door and everything. And we got to watch our brother walk across the stage and everything. And my dad was just crying the entire time because we never thought that he would ever make it that far. But like he did. And it's crazy to see, you know, he's a high functioning, he's high functioning autistic, but it's really hard for him to like focus on something or to like sit down and do something, unless it's something that he wants to do. You can't force him to do anything. He doesn't want to do that. And it was just one of those like really, really good like moments in my life where I got to see my brother walk across the stage after like years of being the little big brother, like I said. And I don't know, it was just one of those moments where you just like look back on it and you're like, man, I'm so proud of him, right? And anyways, so I think it was about a year later, we put my brother into a home. I forget what they're called, the shared homes for people that can't live on their own. And so that he could try and build something for himself. You know, he was getting unemployment, and that was paying his bills at that place where he could live month to month, and he could, you know, buy food for himself, have a little bit left over to go do things and be social. And quickly we learned that he was not very responsible with money, and he was getting in all kinds of trouble. And I don't know. It's just JT. It's just my older brother. He's perpetually in trouble, and if he's not in trouble, he's trying to make trouble. But every time I see that dude, I'm the only person that can look him in the eye, because he likes to talk a lot. And he gets anxious. When he gets anxious, he gets very toxic. Like he'll start yelling at you and telling you all these things. And I'm the only person in our family that can look at him and tell him to stop, and he'll shut the fuck up on the spot and listen to everything I say with direct eye contact. I'm the only person that can do that with him. And which has come in handy quite a few times, especially in family gatherings when he goes off. Anyways, to go back to the original thing about my father and his wife at the time. As we had moved to Florida, and like I said, my dad was working 9 to 5 there, which he so my dad was working at a new job, 9 to 5, as previously stated. Sorry, the camera keeps shutting off halfway through recording, but I still got audio, so there'll be pictures in between, I guess. So he was working 9 to 5, and he's making a lot more money, which is more money than we were used to making. You know, we were living in a nice house. We didn't have to worry about, being able to afford something to happen to the car, or this or that. And we're living like really, really comfortably, and it was nice. And I think my dad thought it was perfect, but like he didn't realize what was going on at home. He didn't realize what his wife was doing to the kids, more specifically me and my brother. And after my brother moved out, all that left was me. And that's when shit started to get really fucking crazy, right? She would bully me more and more and more, and now I was doing twice the work because I was the only person at home for her to take her anger out on. And there was literally months where I would not get to see my friends outside of school. And then one day was the final straw for me, is when I had redone the entire house, cleaned everything. I did all the gardens, everything. The house was literally perfect. And my dad came home, and she was told him, she's like, yeah, I cleaned the house. Corey helped me a little bit. And by Corey helped me a little bit, she means that she was out smoking a pack of Marlboro Lights, watching me do work for her all day long, cleaning the pool, all this stuff, right? And this is a massive house, by the way. We had gotten this house at a foreclosure, and they got like a really nice deal on it and all this other shit. And it was a lot of fucking work. All right, it really was. I cleaned everything. I had, I was like, just spent like a week sitting here cleaning and doing all this stuff, and just every day her taking the taking all the credit for like everything that I had done, right? And then there was one day where I was out doing gardening work, and as always, and it started like thundering and lightning and raining on me. Or no, it was raining at first, and she told me that I couldn't come inside until there was lightning. So eventually I came inside, and I was like grabbing food, and I was like literally working like a fucking slave for her. And she just didn't care. She told me to go back outside and everything, and I was like, well, it's like, it's 6:30 at night. I've been working all day long. You're going to make me sit out here and, cut these trees and do all this stuff for you and not give me any credit. But, of course, it's not about giving me credit. It's about making herself look better. And I don't know, I just had enough, right? So I went to my dad in tears because I was so tired and upset and just fed up with all the bullshit. And I told him everything. I literally laid everything out that had happened when he wasn't home or under his nose to him, and his response was okay. He said that he'd been feeling something in the household not being normal, and he knew something was going on with me. He knew that I hadn't been acting the way that I usually had. So went upstairs, and he confronted her, of course, on there with him, and there was a falling out, and where they were angry words were exchanged and everything, and she turned to me, and this was the turning point for me and my dad's lives. Just the thing, this one thing she said, right? She looked at me dead in the eyes and said, maybe I should send you back to your mother so she can fucking fix you. And at this point in my life, I was old enough to have a grasp on my past, and I was still trying to figure out how I felt about the entire situation with my birth mother. I was super confused. I knew nothing. I knew as much as my dad would tell me, and that wasn't very much. And just hearing that to me crushed me. Because not only did it remind me of all the evil things that she had done to me and done to my brother, but it reminded me of what I thought of myself. And I thought about all those times where I was sitting in my room late at night thinking about what I did wrong in life to make my mother leave or to push me away. I blame myself for everything, and I still do. Like, I can't see how you can leave a child. And that's always been an issue in my life. Trying to figure out what I can do better. Because I've always felt that everything that happened in my life was my own fault, right? And that when that happened, when she said that to my face, it just that was worse than stabbing me. That was worse than years of verbal and mental abuse and manipulation, and it just crushed me. And my dad heard that, and the first thing he said was, I want a divorce. I'm going to go get paperwork tomorrow. And And I went to my room and just cried for hours and hours and hours because I just, it just revived all those emotions that I had been distracted from. It had all of it come back to me all at once, and it literally just crushed every fiber of my being. I just don't see how a human being with emotion can say something like that to a child. I think that was the creative and emotional turning point in my life after that divorce. If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here where I am today. I wouldn't have the will to want to create anything. So my dad went on, put paperwork into the divorce, and this all happened around Thanksgiving time. And my dad, he didn't want me to be near everything that was happening, so he sent me to my aunt's house in New Hampshire for a week to have Thanksgiving up there because he didn't want me to be around what was happening. He didn't want me to be around the divorce itself. So I was back home with my family, surrounded by family and love and all these supportive people. And I get a phone call, and it's my dad, and he says, "Hey, I'm gonna come up, and I'm gonna come up to New Hampshire with you." And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" And a couple days later, he showed up, and he's got this little suitcase with him with some clothes in it, and he wasn't there for a good reason. So what had happened was when my dad filed the paperwork for divorce, he had to go on a business trip to Miami for 2 days. And when he came home, there was a restraining order on the door. All of the locks were changed. She made it seem like me and my father were demons in a household where we were targets. So my dad showed up to the door with the restraining order on it, and she came out front and told him that she didn't want him to be near her and all this other stuff, all yelling and screaming and everything. So my dad got in his car with his suitcase of clothes for 2 days and some dirty clothes that had been left on the driveway. And he had called my aunt, just not sure what to do. All he had was the car, the suitcase. She had drained his bank accounts. We had $27 in cash. And we were essentially homeless for about 6 months. He had to change all of his cards because she had drained all of his savings and everything that she had access to. She took all of the money out of everything. And when we came back, my aunt had bought him a plane ticket to come see us. Come up to New Hampshire and spend the time with us because she didn't want him to be living in a car. And she could risk sending him money because she had access to the bank account. So my dad had to shut all that down. And when we went back, we lived in our car for about 2 months where I went to school and showered at friends' houses. And eventually we had a very close friend of ours, would be Stacy and Ray. Stacy's a deaf woman, Ray's colorblind, which is kind of hilarious, right? And their 2 kids. And we stayed with them for probably about 3.5, 4 months until finally my dad had gotten some savings up and we started renting out a house. And by this time, I hadn't seen my little brother in about 6... No, it was about 6 months by the time that I saw him again. And when I saw him, the first thing he said to me was, "I hate you," and proceeded to try and beat me up, clawing at me and kicking at me. And that was 6 months of him living with her and her spewing lies into him, telling him that we didn't love him, that we were abusive, and if like I said it before, if you tell someone something over and over every single day of their life, eventually they're going to believe it. And that's what happened. My little brother hated me. It was another year before I heard him tell me that he loved me. And it was very, very hard to deal with that and try and understand what is happening. My dad tried to be there for me and explain it to me. Of course, he had the same issue, supervised visitation with my little brother, because the court thought we were abusive. They thought I beat my little brother. Remember when I told you about the trampoline burns? When you slide on a trampoline when you're not wearing a shirt? She took pictures of those after my little brother went on the trampoline and turned them into the court and told them that I was beating my brother. So, no one was on our side. It was me, my dad, against this witch and a lawyer that she bought with all of my dad's money that she had taken. We had never felt more helpless. The only thing we had to hold on to at that point was the truth, to tell the truth. Keep your story straight. Tell the truth. The truth will set you free, as I said earlier. And we never added to the story. We never took away from the story. I was 13 years old going through interviews with lawyers and people and writing written statements that all said the same thing. But a greedy person always wants more. And she proceeded to continue to try to add lies onto a story that was already built on just that lies. And it was tough. It was tough for us because we couldn't do anything in retaliation. All we could do was tell the truth as much as we could and hope that someone would believe us. But she kept trying to feed lies into it, and eventually the judge caught on to it, and everybody caught on to it and understood what she was doing. They looked and they saw that she had bought a Hummer with my dad's money, that she was trying to manipulate my little brother successfully, brainwashed my little brother into hating me and my dad. And we ended up winning custody of my little brother. We ended up getting our house back and all this stuff, and everything was right again in the world. But the marks are still there. There's still pain. I still had to remember those words that she said to me. And those words will never leave. The emotional scarring and the trauma that she caused, it's irreversible. To this day, she still tries to manipulate my little brother in ways that you wouldn't think a human would be able to do that to someone. It's hard to believe any of that situation happened. It's hard to believe that I had to go through my little brother that I helped raise hated me because someone told him lies for months and now for years. And you can't change that fact, because when it comes down to it, it's what he thinks, what he perceives, how he sees things. And me and my dad tried not to change anything. We tried to be the same people we were before. We tried to tell every time I could. I told every chance I got, I told my little brother that I loved him, repeatedly. Every therapy session that we had to go through, every moment where he would get angry because he was told a lie, and he would understand that that wasn't the truth. When he started to process the information in his own way and understand what was really going on around him, he slowly started to come back to us, and it's been about 5 years now. No, more than, yeah, about 5 years when the divorce is finally finalized. I was 15. And a lot of negative things come from that, but I don't want to focus too much on that. Good thing it came from the divorce. I was just getting into high school when the divorce was completely over with. I was 15 years old, 14, 15 years old, and I was coming into high school, and I found this wonderful way to release all this emotion, and that is music. When I finally got all my stuff back from the small storage unit that she was renting every month, she jam-packed all her stuff into this container. And I remember going into the container with my dad and reaching up to the very top and grabbing my guitar by the neck. It was a guitar that I didn't know how to play. I had it forever, but I never knew how to play it. And I looked at my dad when I grabbed it, and I said, I want to learn. So I did. The following years consisted of me finally having time to express myself in ways that I hadn't before. I was making music. I was starting to create things. I was learning to draw. I was getting familiar with computers. I was playing video games. I was doing all this stuff that I'd never had time for before, and it was amazing. And I was just free of that. Free of that control that she had over my life, free of the fear and the agony every day. I was finally me. I'd never been me before that. And over the next couple years, I was going through high school, and I was finally figuring out what career path I wanted to go into. I wanted to go into the military. I was learning how to work on cars. I had my own job. I was working hard to get a vehicle. When I finally had enough money to go buy a car, I saved up $2,000. I was looking on Craigslist with my dad, and I decided I was gonna go look at this Pontiac Fiero that was up the road from us. And my dad's putting on his shoes, tying his shoes, getting his jacket ready and stuff to go out. And I'm on my phone looking up, trying to find the address for the Fiero, and I type in PO, and Porsche pops up in the suggested whatever, and I was like, oh, sure, I'll see if there's any Porsche in there while I'm waiting for him to do his thing, and I click on it, and there's this Porsche 924S in Porsche red with all the decals on it, and it was just sleek, and it was sexy, and I immediately fell in love with it, and I told my dad, I was like, I want this car right now. He's like, it's up for $3,000. I was like, I know we can talk him down, let's go do it. So we drove down there. Forget the Pontiac Fiero. I wanted this Porsche. We went and boom, $2,000. It was $1,800. $1,800 in the spot. Bought a new battery for it. Drove it off the lot. That was my first ever car, and it was awesome. It was awesome little Porsche. I still have it back home. I don't have it here. I live in Hawaii right now, so. So I finally had a vehicle that was my own, which was awesome for me. Finally had something to call my own. I was dating at the time. I was just living like Larry. I don't know. I was living like me. Like I was just being myself, and I had freedom to go do things, and I was making money, and I was happy, and it was just amazing. But I didn't focus on school. I was too devoted to making money and to girlfriends and music, and I just had so much going on in my mind at the time. I was finally starting to develop myself, to develop my own character, to be me. I was developing who I am today, right? And this is around the time when I finally found out about my two brothers, and that was kind of lurking in the back of my head, trying to figure out how I could contact them. And senior year of high school, I had this girlfriend for like a year, and prom came around. It's like 2 days before prom, and of course she's going to prom with me. And then I think it was a week before prom, she broke up with me for some other dude, and broke my heart. But I had my best friend Vinny at the time. I ended up bringing him to prom as my man date. That was pretty cool. And senior year of high school it wasn't bad. It was probably my favorite year of school and of my teen years. I really felt like I was myself more than ever during that time. I was playing guitar. At the time I had finally learned my sixth instrument, which was ukulele. I went and I bought a ukulele, and I had played in orchestra. I played cello in it, and I used to do solos and quartets and stuff like that for competitions and do sight reading, all that shit. I used to do all that, and but like my real passion was rock, right? I really wanted to be a rock guitarist or a rock star, like every kid does, and and I ended up getting taught by Tommy Skioch from Tesla. For those of you that don't know, I talk about it all the time. He taught me for about a year and a half. He was my teacher until one day he just like stopped responding, and it was no big deal. I had already learned the basics of guitar. I could already play, I already learned how to do some rhythm. I knew blues. I could do lead. I could do anything I wanted to at that time. And I think the biggest reason why I didn't care too much that I wasn't taking guitar lessons anymore is because I had a full grasp on music at that point. From a rock star point of view, where you have your it's not an unprofessional look, but like a untraditional. Untraditional. It wasn't a traditional look on music. I had the traditional look on music from playing cello, and I had this other look on it playing with Tommy and like learning how to finger pick and all this other stuff with guitar, and I would go into the orchestra room, and the very, very back they had this amp with this electric guitar that was plugged up to it, and I used to go back there. I used to wail out these like crazy blues solos that I can't even do anymore because the years of it's on and off playing. I used to just go out there and wail out these blues solos and like just sit there and just put emotion into it. And it felt so good to have an outlet. And then after I was done with that, I'd put it down, and you'd have the kid that's over there that's like really into rock, like, whoa, was that Sweet Child of Mine? Was that some Stevie Ray Vaughan? I'm like, yeah, man. Then I'd go over there and I'd get on the double bass and I'd start playing Crazy Train on it. Boom, 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 boom. And I'd start slapping on a double bass and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I felt like I was special, which I'd never felt before, and it was, I felt like I had a talent that I never had access to, and I don't know. I honestly don't know if I'd be into music the way I am if it weren't for my dad's marriage. Honestly, like it was a shitty time, but a lot of good stuff came from it in the end, and I'm not happy it all happened, but I'm happy that what came from it. And like honestly, that is the biggest thing in my life that molded me to be who I am. Seeing shitty things happen in front of me and seeing the good things happen, which is why I always say this saying that if you're in a down point and you're at your lowest, the only place to go is up. Things can only get better when they're at their worst. You know what I mean? Like, if you're sitting on the street with no money, living in a car, doing all this stuff, the only way to go is up. Things can't get worse. And I think that was that whole situation just turned my perception on the world. And ever since then, I've tried to be positive. I've tried to be more positive. And it's hard sometimes to be positive. It really is. Positivity can be a stressor, if anything else. If you're positive all the time, thank you for being you, because I cannot do what you do. Yeah. So, anyway, so after senior high school, I ended up enlisting in the U.S. Army. Obviously, that's where I am today, and left for basic training on October 13th. Is the day I enlisted officially and left for basic. Which is funny because a year and 1 day before that was the day that I started streaming and making content under the name The Eighth Mile. Streaming was interesting for me because it was a passion that I didn't know I was like I didn't ever think I was I'd always wanted to be an entertainer, but I didn't realize that I don't think I was meant to be a rock star. I think that I'm meant for a different kind of entertainment. And streaming, like I said, streaming in the very, very beginning of the video, streaming can be super, super stressful, and it is super, super stressful, and a lot of people don't understand that. But one thing that is for sure is that streaming has done nothing but positive things for my life. And that's why I'm like super, super grateful for those of you that are out there that have been with me when I create content in my lows and my highs. You guys help me more than you think, more than you know. Sorry. This deep passion for something helps me drive and do things better and be a better person for you guys, for myself, for Grace. And wholeheartedly, you guys are fantastic. All I can ever have for you guys is thanks and love, for real. You guys help me through a lot of shit. And so have a lot of other streamers. A lot of content creators help distract me from thoughts and processes in my mind that shouldn't be there in the first place. So anyways, I joined the military, ended up going to basic training and then AIT at Fort Eustis, and ended up over here in Hawaii. Wonderful Hawaii. I was supposed to go to Fort Hood, but I ended up trading orders like an idiot to go over here. But if I hadn't, I wouldn't have met Grace. Grace is my beautiful wife. Which is another happy little accident, as Bob Ross would say. There's no mistakes, just happy little accidents. And she's been nothing but a positive influence on my life. And I'm grateful for every day that I have her. And I'm grateful for every moment that led up to meeting her. Which is why I can't be angry of what's happened in my life. Because if I didn't have those lows, I wouldn't appreciate the highs. And on that note, I'm going to end the video here. There might be a follow-up on some more stories and details if this does as well as I want it to. Thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart for being there and for watching this video and listening through this long, monotone speech of mine about my life. I did skip over a lot of details, but the camera's dying right now, and I think that's a signal for me to stop. I really appreciate you guys. Like, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, with every fiber of my being, I just want to say thank you for being there and for being supportive of me, for helping me through rough times, for asking me how I'm doing, and for helping me through the lows. Because you guys make the highs better than they could ever be. And I really appreciate you guys. And I love you. Rock on, guys.